Hi, everyone. This is Harold Szymanski with the MBA Mission Podcast, which I'm the host of. But we're here today with GMAT to talk to you about the last minute MBA application. I hope everyone else is doing well out there. MBA applications are due anytime really from now towards about mid to end of January and into February. And the reality is that, yes, now is in fact a last minute application. That doesn't necessarily mean a bad application. It can be a great application, but that's what we're here to talk to you about today. Again, this is Harold Szymanski here with GMAT Club. And by all means, take a look at GMAT Club, like this video, watch our other videos, look at all the great resources GMAT Club has, look at all the great resources that we at MBAmission.com have. Okay, so first let's take a step back and recognize that there is an opportunity to create some great applications between now, December 16th, and when applications are due, which I think the first application is due about January 4th for round two. January 4th, and then it really continues on from there until end of January. So what we're going to talk about here is sort of what's going on. How are the admissions officers thinking about this whole process? What does the ideal long-term plan look like? What is the realistic last minute plan look like, which is what we're really here to talk about today. And finally, a little bit more about what we do at MBA Mission. So inside the mind of the admissions officer, and this is something that many of you already know, but it's certainly worth talking a little bit about, is who are these admissions officers? They frequently, though not always, graduated from the MBA program. They're passionate about the school. They are not HR professionals. They are business school professionals. They are frequently business professionals who have returned to the school to work in admissions. They will know some understanding of what your career goals are or what your industry is, but not necessarily as deep as maybe you certainly do. And they are really looking here to be your supporter, your champion, not just simply be the person who says no, which is very, very hard, just given the amount of the class size, the total number of applicants here. I mean, we're looking at any given year, the top schools are getting anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 applicants. At that point, then they have to certainly do best of intentions. They certainly have to start cutting through things fairly quickly. And what they're going to be looking for here is recognizing that they're actually trying to manage a few really satisfying a very limited number of stakeholders. Professors who want the students to be academically excellent. Students who want to make sure that their classmates are great community members. Alumni are these folks that they're going to be proud to have as other alumni, or these applicants folks who they're going to make the school proud. Recruiters, honestly, are recruiters going to be able to look at this group of people and say, hey, we can get them jobs? And the dean is really sort of all of the above. Are they the brand stewards? Are these the types of applicants that we really want to see in our school? And from that perspective, there's obviously different ways of approaching anything. Clearly, there is the long-term plan where you make sure that you prove out your academic abilities. You make sure that your leadership experiences and potential is clear. You want to make sure that you have what I'd call interpersonal skills, this notion here of you are somebody who people get along with, who people want on their team. Diversity and international experience matter. Business schools are looking to have a very diverse class, and this is just one thing they keep in mind. And then finally, the mutual fit with the target program, meaning are you applying to a particular program? Are you applying to MIT? Or are you applying to business schools? For business schools, they want you to be applying to their school, not just any school. They want to make sure that you know why you're applying to MIT versus Harvard versus Ross versus whoever. And all of these things have to be communicated through a very effective application. And this is best done through the long-term plan. I think when it comes to things like, okay, how does one start proving out all of these things? Well, a big piece of it is the GMAT. A big piece of it is getting to know the schools, really enhancing your community leadership, showing that you're a great member of the community. If you have to prove out your academic abilities because the GMAT's not really working for you, or you have to switch classes, are there other courses you could take that say, hey, even though my academic record is not maybe what I want it to be, and or my GMAT or GRE are not maybe where I want it to be, I'm going to show you my academic abilities in a different way, meaning maybe through an online course. Well, if you start early enough, you have the opportunity to do just that. And again, starting early enough means that you can do all of these things, though, of course, as you start approaching the deadline, you can only do a few of them, which is fine. The reality is that many people who are just starting to work on their business school application now have very specific reasons for doing that. In which case, you have to let business schools know. You have to let them know that something has changed. The reason you're applying now rather than either last year or next year is because you've been busy with things. You've just retaken your GMAT. You had expected to get a promotion but didn't, but there are very specific reasons why now makes the most sense for you to go to business school. That's always the question at hand. Why an MBA? Why at that particular business school? But also, why now? Why at this point of your career? All of that has to be communicated. And again, more about the ideal long-term plan here. September rolls into October. September round 1 deadlines, January round 2 deadlines, doing many different things in parallel. The reality is that you can get a lot done applying early, starting the process early. But of course, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about what happens if you end up applying late or you're sort of are scrambling. And here's what I always tell folks to think about here is where should you really invest your time? And I think if there's one place that frequently gets pushed aside when you're looking at applying late in the process, it's the amount of specificity you have around each school. So as you think about the places where you can invest your time, assessing your candidacy, and by all means, what that really means is, are you applying to the right schools? And do you know why you are applying to those schools? So, for example, if you say, I'm only going to go to business school if I want to get into Harvard, Stanford, or Wharton, that's great. That's the answer. Then you apply to those 3 schools. If, however, you say, I must be in business school in September, I'm ready to leave my job, then applying to just Harvard, Stanford, or Wharton is not going to make a huge amount of sense because there's a great likelihood you don't get in anywhere. So that, I think, is always the concern. And I think where people then go wrong is either choosing either too narrow a group of schools based on what your goals are, or for that matter, just being very haphazard in terms of the schools you apply to and not making a compelling case for applying to going to any particular school. So what I think is going to be really important for people to do, even at this late date, is meaning 2 weeks, 3 weeks before deadlines, is spend that extra bit of time and actually getting to know the schools and being able to then really craft each individual essay or application saying why you want to go here versus there. And this is something that, yes, you can do it by talking to people. You can do it by visiting the schools. You can do it by talking to people. Those are the ideals. But the reality is, if you don't have time to do that, now it's time to do some great research on it. And one place, and in commercial here, one place that you can do some great research is using the MBA mission, our new offering called On Track. We have some more information about it that I can share with you. That's a virtual consultant. They can get going right away with it, but has some great information about each individual schools. And as you can see here, I flipped over a couple of things here, but planning each application, assessing your candidacy, that really speaks to this notion here of know where you're going to apply to and why you want to go. If you're, like I said, if you're ready just to go to one particular school, you apply there. If you must be in school by the following September, make sure you have a wide list. Customizing your essays for each school, yes, that completely starts with getting to know each school, doing your research. Crafting a business school resume, yes. Look online for our guide. A business school resume is not a professional resume. It's something very specific. We have some information on our website, in our guide, on track, and clearly if you work with one of our consultants. And we talk a lot about this. Again, broken record here, fit. Make it clear why this school is the right school for you. Okay, so now we talk about assessing your candidacy. And again, you have to be very realistic. There are certain schools that are simply hard to get into, and it doesn't matter who you are. If you're considering Stanford Graduate School of Business, the rejection rate is about 92%. So that means of the people who apply to Stanford, 92% get rejected. 90% of Harvard Business School students get rejected. 85% of Wharton or MIT Stanford student applicants get rejected. So as long as you have these things in mind, and recognize this, then again, it's full steam ahead. But be very realistic here. And we also live in a world now, particularly for international students, there are no such thing as likelies anymore. There are no such things as safety schools. The only way that you can really mitigate how hard it is to get into business school generally is by applying to a lot of schools, honestly. Planning each application, what we'll frequently talk about here is this notion of, okay, lay out all the questions for any application you're considering. Look at them in bundles. There's going to be those that are all about your goals for the future, short-term goals, long-term goals, aims, and aspirations. There's also going to be those that are very much focused on things like what have been your previous accomplishments, professional accomplishments, personal accomplishments. Start thinking about them in bundles. Start pulling together different applications and saying, okay, Columbia 1 is very similar to Wharton 1, which is very similar to then Chicago 2. So think about, if you have these applications in mind, go on our website. We have a tremendous amount of free essay tips. Start bundling things together, thinking about them that way. Obviously, one thing that you're always going to have to pull out is this notion of, how are you as an engaged citizen? How are you as a professional? How are you as an engaged citizen? Meaning, how are you outside of the office? How are you as a mentor? How are you as a leader? All of these things are really going to come out in many different essays. And here we talk a little bit about what we call multidimensional brainstorming, which is this idea here of, okay, think about unifying themes of your own experiences. What do you do both professionally, personally, that really is a thread that goes through really everything you do? Are you a leader in work, or are you a leader outside of work? How does that manifest? Do you have examples of doing these things? That, in many ways, is the most important thing. Business school applications are not about, we like to say, show, don't tell. It's not about I did this, I did that, but rather you give illustrations of really your successes. And as you can see here from the, again, what we're trying to do here is sort of indicate to you the importance of pulling themes together, pulling them together really throughout every aspects of who you are and what you do. So in this particular person, a great project manager at work, in work, they also have what I would say outside of their normal scope of responsibilities, they're involved in what's called the health committee. Then they're also part of a theater board, again, showing themselves as engaged citizens. Then they're a great grandson. And yes, people can even talk about sort of how they have done personally, how they work through personal pieces of their life. And I think that all of that is relevant for an essay, as long as you can build that theme up. And a lot of this really has to do with introspection work and brainstorming work and figuring out what makes you unique. And again, not too much for a commercial here, but obviously GMAT has some great resources in terms of some of their previous videos. At MBA Mission, we have a huge amount of resources online for free. We also have On Track, our new virtual consultant, and obviously if you work with a consultant directly. As we talk about planning for each application, it's really this notion here of, okay, constantly thinking about those things that make you unique, something that only you can say. What have you been doing that nobody else has been doing? I tell folks, as you think about your essays, look at them and start reading them through and saying to yourself, from the essay, from reading that essay, is it clear what school you're applying to? Because if it's not clear what school that you're applying to from that essay, then maybe there's a better essay to be written. I want to go to school A because it's community driven and I learn about community in my classes where we develop community. I want to learn economics, accounting, and finance, and I'd love to also get some marketing experience as well through the core curriculum. What I've just written, you can write about any single school. So the thing is, and this is where the research really comes to bear, is think about what you can only say about that particular school. There are some schools that are very much going to be what I would say really focused on community, but in an active way. Kellogg, for example, or Tuck, for example. So when they say they're focused on community, you have to say, okay, here's how I'm going to plug into the community. For example, as a former member of the military, I will really work to engage with the Veterans Club. Picking up my background as a registered investment advisor, I would love to bring to the military club examples of registered investment advisors who have left the military and now working in this industry. It's this notion here of what can you bring that's really specific, and you still have time to make these types of connections. Like these are things that will not require you a huge amount of time, a huge amount of research to do, but get specific. Customize your essays for each school. I think probably the best way of doing that is getting into the nitty-gritty of what the clubs are. What do they do? If they have conferences, is there something that you can bring to the conference? Is there somebody that you worked with or know who would be a great addition to a conference, for example? If you say, I'm going to join the startup club, why? What are you going to do there? Who are you going to involve there? If you talk about the family business club, why? What can you bring? It's always this question of not just in a very superficial way, how are you going to be involved, but giving real specifics about things. And even though the specifics may not end up being wholly come to fruition, I'd say, but at least you indicate to them that, listen, I know exactly what it is that I can bring to campus, the types of things I can bring to campus. I'm not just there to sort of follow along here. So I'm going to pause for 1 second here. Yeah, we talk about customizing your essay for each school. We'll talk a minute about crafting a business school resume. Commercial here, if you have questions or something, I'll pause occasionally and take a look at them. I'll be answering most of them tonight. At the end. But let me see what I got here. Okay, crafting a business school resume. Some great resources online. Business school resume, first of all, looks like every other business school resume. And what I mean by that is this is not a great place for creativity. There's a very specific template. I think MIT even lays it out in terms of Times New Roman, 12-point. For MIT, the sections are education, experience, additional. For every other school, it's experience, education, additional. And it is very much around impact as opposed to responsibilities. In the application itself, you'd put in job responsibilities, meaning there's a section in the application, which would be job responsibilities. On the resume itself, it is all about impact. Impact means metrics. I led the development of 3 new sites that had over 400 employees there. That sort of metrics of success, I like to tell them. My work increased sales by X millions of dollars or cut costs by $300,000, whatever it is. Always thinking about what can I indicate on the resume, what I did that if I hadn't been there, it wouldn't have happened. Okay, it's not just about what your job description was. It was really about what you were able to accomplish. Okay, we keep on coming back to this notion of determining and expressing fit with the school. If you write something that be written about any other school, it's simply you're not optimizing the opportunity you have there. Figure out what are those things that one school does differently than another school. And again, it's not the core curriculum, it's beyond that. Are there some unique classes? Are there some unique professors that are saying things that you don't see at other places? Start Googling around, find a TED Talk of maybe somebody who's interesting to you. Is there a conference that they only hold, that only that particular school holds? Kellogg and Chicago hold a entrepreneurship through acquisition conference each year. It's a dual, both schools do it combined. It's a very unique thing. The MIT holds the sports analytics conference. These are things that only happen on their particular campuses. Make note of that. Make it clear that you know something different about the schools. Even better, if you have a friend there, you can even comment that a friend told you, hey, at Columbia, Bob Smith told me about how exciting his in-semester internship was. First of all, it's great if you know that somebody at Columbia can drop their name in. Also for Columbia and some other schools, that person who you may know, even if they're not a recommender, can reach out to the admissions committee on your behalf. So I think that's worth knowing. And also you start getting the notion here, Columbia is different because it loves New York City. It has in-semester internships, which other schools do not. Each school has these little bit of nuggets. If you just drill down enough, particularly if you know somebody, you'll get to that point. If you have time to talk to students, great. Now it's getting sort of late. How do you actually get a chance to talk to current students? friends of friends, LinkedIn. I'm starting blasting out to every Columbia student name you can find is ideal. Okay, how do you invest your time? I think right now, the thing to do is research the schools and get going. I think at this point, research the schools is probably the number one thing you can do. Get going means writing some really compelling essays, because at the end of the day, you have to have the quality of your document counts. And at this point, if you are going to do really a mediocre job, then you have to start reassessing whether or not how many schools do you apply to, and also be very realistic here. And maybe you say something like, okay, it'd be nice to go to school come next September. So in which case, let me do this, but I could still stay at my job another year. Let me do this. Let me just apply to a couple of dream schools. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll look at applying round one next year, and that will give you the highest chance of acceptance. Round one, the acceptance rate is always higher for every school. So you say, okay, for this year, I'm going to apply round two, do some fast applications. It's only a couple of weeks away. Let me give it a try. The flip side is, hey, I'm leaving my job. I have to be in business school next September. In that case, maybe it's time to leave your job right now and then spend the next 2 or 3 weeks really pushing hard on applications. Where can you save some time? I mean, at this point, forget about school visits. At this point, it's probably not particularly valuable for you to retake a standardized test anymore. Hopefully you've done about as well as you can, or you want to give it one last shot, but without it putting in a huge amount of time, by all means. But recognizing that to really move your score takes about 30 or 40 hours of studying, it's not clear to me that may be the best use of your time. Yeah, I mean, take a vacation from work, do whatever you have to do to get these applications. These are some sample timelines for you. Honestly, I will leave it all to you to sort of figure out what works best. Let me just note here, recommendations also take time. When it comes to a recommendation at this point, you simply want somebody who's enthusiastic, who's going to write some great things for you. Business schools now are very much on the lookout for recommendations that it sounds like were written by the candidate. So right now, I'm very much encouraging people to just make these recommendations very authentic and organic. Just ask somebody who hopefully you like, that they like you, or you better ask somebody who likes you and is willing to be your champion. Just get them going. On our website, we have some resources. Do not even feel you have to give them a huge amount of prep. You don't want to be writing recommendations for people anymore. That used to be maybe better, not good, but necessarily okay. But now, between the plagiarism software and everything else, that you'll be rejected. If admissions committee believes that you're the person who wrote the recommendations, they'll stop reading. So at that point, I say, give your recommender a little bit of guidance, telling them, hey, would you please mention this, this, or that? Really, it's just your greatest hits. And at that point, then leave it in their hands. Authenticity is what matters now. Be prepared to prep your recommenders less than maybe you would have thought of in the past, and just let them write. Other things to really focus on at this point is start actually filling out the applications. They're very tedious. They take a long time. Just jump in. When you need a brain break, you can always add in your name and address, and do it for every school that you even considering, because the worst feeling is finishing your essays on January 3rd and then trying to finish up the rest of the applications. It's incredibly tedious. It'll kill you, and you won't get it done. Okay, sequence your essays. At this point, yes, you have to do things. Bucket your essays, as I alluded to. You have to do them in multiple ways. You have to sort of have different buckets depending on the school essays. This, again, is getting in details of what your schedule should look like. What if you have fewer than 6 weeks? This is all about it. Now's the time to go. The best use of your time right now is just make sure your recommenders know who they are, and you gave them some pointers. You've started doing at least the most basic school research. Use OnTrack. Go into our online platform. That is a virtual consultant. It's terrific. It will get you there. It'll give you all that you need for right now. If you are farther down the process and you need somebody to help review your essays or resume, by all means, connect with us at MBA Mission. Start off with a free 30-minute conversation with me or one of my colleagues to maybe have a better understanding of what your needs are, and we can make some recommendations. And at that point, though, but now truly is the time to get going. I think you all know that. So now we get to the Q&A part. What I'm going to do here is, here's some information about us. I am going to leave up on our screen. Here's our website. Here's my email address. You can sign up for a free 30-minute consultation, and also go to our website and you can find out about OnTrack, which is our virtual consultant. Another quick commercial here before I start looking at all of the different questions, which is this video. Go online and find some of the other GMAT Club videos. Like them, put in some great comments here. GMAT Club, great partner, has always does such a wonderful job. Love working with them. And by all means, like them, like us, but certainly be in touch. Now let me take a look at some of your questions here. What are some quick ways to ensure my essays are compelling and align with the program's values? You have to do research. There's no way of knowing for sure. You have to do research. You have to figure out what makes that school different. Maybe sometimes you even pick up some of their own language. McCombs decisions first round. McCombs decisions first round tonight. Great. I wish you all good luck on that front. Yeah, biggest concern I'm having right now is what if I get into 0 schools? Any tips on assessing my candidacy? A few different answers. Listen, you can certainly call us and set up a free 30-minute consultation when we can assess your candidacy. As far as 0 schools, the only way to mitigate, particularly if you're from an overrepresented demographic, the only way to improve your chances is by applying to a lot of schools. That's really the bottom line. You could get into all, you can get into none. Obviously, I don't know anything, but clearly it is simply more likely you get in the more schools you apply to. Have the median scores enough? I don't know what your scores are or the schools you're looking at. I have a low score in my GRE and analytical writing. I did well in both quant and verbal, with analytical writing score being wanted to know what prominence do schools place in AWA score. Not that much. I would not be particularly concerned about an AWA score. I have people of all sorts of scores going into all sorts of different schools. How do we make a compelling resume? Great question. We certainly have some resources online. A compelling resume is one that shows impact. This notion here of it's not just what your responsibilities were, but what you did, what happened because of you. And then impact is all about your ability to communicate it. And that is generally metrics. Did you improve sales by $3 million? Did you cut costs by 20%? Were you able to navigate a difficult boss? How do you communicate something like that? Were you promoted early? Things that you point to and say, hey, I know what that means. I can read that. Every bullet point counts. So I would stay away from general fluff language and see if you can show impact through numbers, and anything that really someone reads it and says, wow, I understand what you did. I have a good career run with 5+ years experience. Aside that, I am involved in a couple of startups. I'm torn between which profile to push in my applications. What do you suggest? Don't know for sure. Obviously, there certainly may be opportunities to use both of them. I've certainly done resumes, for example, that have a more traditional career path as one section. Then another section is an entrepreneurial section. And you could show both of them in parallel. Perfect, then great. Good, then. Let me, final commercial before we finish up here. This is Harold at MBAmission.com. You can reach out to me directly at harold@MBAmission.com. By all means, go to our website, MBAmission.com. We have some great free resources. There's some essay tips. Take a look at our resources. We now have an online virtual consultant called OnTrack, which could, for someone who's looking to apply in the next couple of weeks, they can really get you going, really get things jump-started here. Obviously, if you want to work with one of us directly, whether it's, if you have more time, it would be a full start to finish package. If you just need things like essays or resumes checked over, then maybe a few hours with us would make sense. But a lot can be explained at mbamission.com. On that note, I'm going to say last questions, and then I will sign off. Someone's looking for a free consultation. Yes, go to our mbamission.com/consult and sign up with either myself or one of my colleagues. Very good then. Okay, everyone, have a very, very good day or night wherever you are, and good luck with this exciting process.